Maie, hii nayo utangoja sana nichukue. Sichukui, niko juu ya pikipiki. Na sheria ya barabara inasema heri kupata missed call kuliko kupata ajali.
To get Piki by Addis Jojo, dial *811*936#. Skiza, non-nation.
Mama Ashanti. How this Nigerian couple has teamed up with 2 other West African families to bring the taste of West Africa to Kenya.
These yams are not found in East Africa.
Really?
These are West African yams.
On Kenya to the World,
governments have done what they need to do.
Kenya and Ghana boost trade between the 2 countries. And on My Magical Kenya, why mangrove forests are key to the tourism sector. This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on NTV.
Ni ukweli imeshuka bei. Smartphone ya nguvu 4G screen kubwa ya kuwatch game ni 3,999 pekee. Ni ukweli.
Pata smartphone ya nguvu kwa bei nafuu kutoka kwa duka la Safaricom au dila leo. Safaricom for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Untitled Chapter.
Thank you for making us.
Thank you for making us your favorite drive show crew. Nation and FM, we love you.
Whoa! Thank you, people.
This is the bankers and stitches. I got you good. Ni wanyama mechizi yani.
Tunajibamba na show yenyu. Muendelee hivyo hivyo.
I came to rap it up, do my thing.
Thank you for listening to 96.3 Nation FM.
Of course, Antona Obina.
And Obina.
Call them taking control.
Mad love, mad respect.
I run the city.
This week on Lit 360.
Don't be crying on your birthday, mama. Tell them it's your birthday. Stay away from bad vibes and all the drama. Tell them it's your birthday. Go ahead and dip it low, drop it low for your homeboy. It's Mviri the storyteller, Bwana Sherehe, Bwana King Solomon II, aka Bwana Mbona Utembei na Chesa, and you're watching Lit 360.
Now let's get back to reality.
Motorsport, put that thing in sports.
Beat sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds.
Gauge 28 at 670 Kenya shillings. Gauge 30 at 370. Gauge 30 Med at 530. Royal Alu Zinc at 280 Kenya shillings. Call us today on 0722 638383. Royal Mabati Factory Limited. We are the best.
Kijani Ridge is Tatu City's premier neighborhood, offering a 1.5 acre fully serviced plot in a controlled development. The plots overlook a beautiful dam with natural green spaces. Kijani Ridge is a walking distance from Nova Pioneer and Crawford International Schools. Families are already moved in and more homes are under construction. Contact us for daily site visits and join us for our mega open weekend on 6th and 7th March.
This is NTV.
Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining us this Wednesday morning. And of course, this is your world, an opportunity to interrogate various aspects that make up or even have potential to break up your world. Speaking of which, just a few weeks ago, we had a young man kill 4 members of his family, and he mentioned he had been inspired by watching a certain British dark comedy drama spy thriller television series. Therein lies the basis of our conversation this morning. How come some people are more influenced by what they consume on the various media platforms? How come someone else can watch the same things and separate reality from fiction? Should we perhaps take more precaution in what we expose ourselves and our children to? We answer these and other questions in a moment as we engage the experts and, of course, hear your point of view. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is Your World. So, is what we consume on TV, the internet, have the power to change or influence us? We discuss that and more today. A TV series was claimed to have been the inspiration to a gruesome murder. Is this the impact of certain media consumption? There is new technology that allows for the tracking of wild animals, and the swarms of locusts still affecting some parts of Kenya. And to that developing story, India's farmers are still up in arms, calling for the repeal of new agriculture laws. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I mentioned, we are thinking or talking about the effects of media consumption. And that question of the day to you is, do you believe that what you watch, could be on social media, series, movies, music videos even, has an effect on who you become? Talk to us. That hashtag is New Normal. And also remember, you can reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. Well, before we get to that discussion, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world in terms of the statistics. And this morning, those numbers stand at 110,020,844 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Out of that number, 84,833,502 have recovered. And unfortunately, 2,428,264 have succumbed to COVID-19 around the world. What's the situation like in Kenya? Well, as per yesterday's Ministry of Health briefing, 103,188 confirmed cases in the country. Out of that number, 85,336 have totally recovered, and unfortunately, we have lost 1,797 Kenyans to COVID-19. Again, I will continue to reiterate the same here on Your World. Remember to wash your hands, social distance, and of course, wear that mask. Let's get to some of the stories making headlines this morning. And the Food and Agriculture Organization has teamed up with a company, 51 Degrees, which specializes in managing protected areas and has rejigged software developed for tracking everything from poaching to injured wildlife or illegal logging to hunt locust swarms. The locusts first infested the East and Horn of Africa in mid-2019, eventually invading 9 countries as the region experienced one of its wettest rainy seasons in decades. Some countries like Kenya had not seen the pest in up to 70 years.
You know, you can see the lines that these locusts have been moving down as well, which is south of Garissa. And now over the last week is the sort of north. But yeah, this is ridiculous, isn't it? You know, that having to travel such, and there must be locusts all through.
We have a lot of swarms. The swarms are much smaller, and then the capacity to respond is much higher. So a year ago, in February 2020, we had 2 aircraft in Kenya able to spray, and very, very minimal quantity of pesticide. Now in Kenya, we have 10 aircraft operating. So the time lapse between the moment we can spot desert locusts and the moment we can treat is much faster, which means that the damage also is very reduced on vegetation, on biomass.
Our approach has completely been changed by good data, by timely data, and by accurate data. And you know, with that, certainly for Kenya and this wave, we've stopped 80% getting back into the breadbasket, where last year we were dealing with a very different situation. You know, there's so many different ways that data come in. It's either coming from chiefs in the, you know, out in the villages and the rural areas and sending in information. We'll then deploy a survey aircraft to confirm that. You know, we've been dealing a lot in Wajir, Garissa, obviously border areas. We're sensitive about where we do send the assets. But as soon as a report comes in, if we can find it out as far east from us as possible and respond to that in a timely manner, that means we're able to spray them out in areas that we can spray.
Tulikuwa tunavuna kama eka moja ya mahindi, tulikuwa tunatoa 25 gunia bags. Sasa saa hii hatutarajii kitu njuu inakula na inamaliza kabisa. Lakini miaka hiyo ingine wakati ile locust haikuwa, tulikuwa tunatoa hata viazi kwa eka moja, tunatoa hata gunia 50, tunatoa maharagwe kwa eka gunia 5, lakini saa hii imekula imemaliza kabisa.
Elsewhere, golf enthusiasts participate in the golf tournament in Libya's eastern port city of Benghazi. The war put an end to playing golf in Libya for 7 years, but now golfers seek support for the club to help maintain the cause. Now, Al Mabruk Mohammed, president of the Benghazi Golf Union, says this tournament was stopped in 2014 due to the events that took place in Benghazi in 2020 after a pause of nearly 7 years, and we were able to resume playing again. He added that this is a well-known and international game as it was established in Libya in 1940 during the British occupation a long time ago. We hope that the state supports the game. Well, due to COVID-19 restrictions, Tunisians are prevented from bidding farewell to their loved ones at the Jalaz cemetery in the capital, Tunis. Lofty Lassi, who lost his brother, says the municipality could have taken his body out in front of a house at least for half an hour, even from a distance, so that we could see my brother from a distance. That was not possible. Mehdi Delai, the team leader, Mortuary Service Municipality of Tunis, says, we accept the presence of families, but while respecting the social distance, it is a very difficult mission physically and psychologically, and it weighs on us a lot. In the continent, South African schools reopen after authorities pushed back the start of a 2021 school year by a few weeks to lower coronavirus infections. A parent expresses concern about the pandemic while teachers worry over the effects of irregular learning last year. Children in townships like Alexandra face additional challenges such as overcrowding and lack of access to resources and support.
If this COVID thing continues, they will have a challenge because they didn't learn much previous year. And I think even now they will come like after a day or two. So there is a lot that they are missing out.
It's hard for us to cope with the COVID regulations because kids are overcrowded here and we can't prevent that situation. You find them in the class, maybe they are plus 70, or so it's difficult to divide them.
Most of our parents here don't have cell phones, technology, the one that we can use. They're poor. They're poor. So they don't get help at home. And so it's upon us to make sure that we take over the things that are supposed to be done by parents by educator assistants. Great to see you.
And to something that points to our conversation of the day, early this year, the country was gripped with horror after 22-year-old Lawrence Warunge was alleged to have killed his mother, father, brother, cousin and family worker in cold blood. He gave a chilling account to investigators how he carried out the heinous act. Now, on January the 26th, after examination, Lawrence was found unfit to stand trial. Many asked why. What does it take to be declared fit or unfit to face trial for the murder of another person? Leila Mohammed sat down with experts and tried to make sense of it all.
The length of time it will take for a murder trial to be heard and fully determined, the journey to an acquittal or a conviction begins with a mental assessment, which will determine if one is mentally stable to stand trial for that offence. The recent announcement at a Kiambu court declaring key suspect Lawrence Warunge in the murder of a family brutally taken from their kin in a night of terror, unfit to take plea, caught many off guard. Chief Magistrate Patricia Gishohi allowed that the suspect be held in custody for 30 days, after which he will undergo another examination. The decision, though shocking to many, isn't a shocker to the medical experts who undertake that important test that determines the fate of one accused of taking the life of another.
When somebody walks in for the mental state examination, even the way they walk, their gait, the way, whether they are kempt or not, whether they have mannerisms, because then you'll ask them, do you understand why you're here?
The understanding of a murder suspect on the implications of their actions and what the near future entails is a matter that criminal lawyers say is key in the criminal justice system to protect the rights of even the accused.
Courts will give direction in terms of another mention date. It can be in a month's time or 2 months, so that the court can find out from the experts what is between the intervening period between the date that person was being brought to court and where the court made the decision that is unfit, because the purpose of being mentally fit is for the person, this person is not yet even an accused because he has not taken plea, but this person was being brought to court to be able to understand what is happening.
Doctors who determine the fate of men who have committed the ultimate crime concur.
If they can understand that they were charged with murder and they are there for examination and what it means to be charged with murder, then at least they understand. Then are they able to explain the circumstances leading to their arrest and why they are linked to this murder?
In the legal corridors, once the mental state of a man accused of such an offence becomes of concern and might make them unable to take plea, the court can make a pronouncement to determine the future of that individual.
Upon reviewing the facts, when the court interrogates the facts and it comes to a conclusion that there's a high likelihood that this person is the one who committed the crime, so what will happen is the court can give directions, do a decision which will direct the cabinet secretary in charge to ensure this person is placed in a mental institution. Now, that one will be for a particular time frame.
And in case one is taken into a psychiatric facility and serves out a set time due to the order of the court, can they still stand trial?
No. No. That would be double jeopardy because it has already been determined by the court. These are the circumstances. This person was culpable. However, at the time they were standing trial, they were not fit, they were not well. But this, for people under this kind of category, this is the kind of punishment that can be meted to them. So the court cannot punish someone twice. That's essentially the thing. Yeah.
Doctors say that in their sessions with suspects, they are able to pick out signs of those trying to evade the justice system by lying about their mental state.
By the time we diagnose even depression or even psychosis or even bipolar, we have to do tests.
Kiambuma, the suspect Lawrence Warunge, will undergo another evaluation to certify if he is unfit to stand trial before the mention of his case on March 1st. Experts say that before one undertakes what is in his mind and heart, some speak out their desires and give signs that those closer to them need to be keen on and get help before all hell breaks loose. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
So, a story that has many people asking many questions about the influence of media consumption. Again, the question of the day to you is, do you believe that what we watch, whether it's on social media, music videos, movies, series, have an impact on who you are or have an influence on you? That hashtag is new normal. And of course, you can also reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. And to help understand this circumstance way better, considering that there are some people who are saying, I don't understand how somebody can actually literally act out what they watch, because for me, this is just literally fiction. Well, let's understand this better. To help us do so, we have Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, who is the CEO, Kenya Film Classification Board. Thank you for your time. We're also joined by Dr. Linda Nyamute, who is a consultant psychiatrist. And of course, joining us virtually, we have Makrina Buka, who is a child psychologist. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I start off with you, Dr. Mutua. Do you believe that there's a direct impact on what we consume and the people we become?
Absolutely. Both direct and indirect. Studies show that media effects take various forms. Some of them are what we call the magic bullet, the what do you call it? The magic bullet theory. That you know, somebody can say something and it hurts you, it irritates you immediately, and you want to take off. You feel bad.
Yes.
It irritates you to a very big extent that you want to take action immediately. But then there is also the other side of it, where the effects are cumulative and gradual, and they take time. In children who are impressionable and whose minds pick and imitate things that they see, and where the process of learning is both nature and nurturing, the environment where they grow and the things they see and the behavior, then the media has a very big influence. The music they listen to, the video games they play, the computer games, the environment, what they are watching, the behavior of the adults within that environment. And that's why it's so important for the well-being of a child to start right from the home. And then the exposure that is given to children in respect to media consumption is managed by the parent from the time the child is young and guided. That's why we, in our role as KFCB, there's a rating called PG, parental guidance. And that is the most important in our view. And it entails having conversation for parents to know also what the media, how media effects can influence the behavior, the perception, and the character of children. So it does, both directly and indirectly, in a very big way. It takes various forms. It depends on also other cognitive approaches to the development of the child. For instance, I think a child who has been guided by the parent in terms of how the media can affect them will be consuming it more responsibly and safely than a child who is just doing it on their own, left to their own devices, and they have nobody to guide them.
Okay.
And then lastly, Gladys, just before I leave that point, in the development of a child, there are let me say three aspects: the physical, the spiritual, the mental health in their growth. And these three are as important. Kenya Bureau of Standards manages and regulates what people consume in terms of what feeds their bodies in terms of physical growth. We have our spiritual leaders who guide us, and our faith that guides us in terms of the faith and the things that we believe that shape our views of life and our realities of life. But then there's the most important thing, which is about also the media that we consume. And we run a program, a media literacy program at KFCB, that we call You Are What You Consume. the essence of that program is to lay emphasis on the fact that the other two, the impact of the other two, the physical growth, the food that you eat so that you're not malnourished, that you don't have kwashiorkor, that a child has a balanced diet and all of us eat well and we remain healthy, the spiritual food that we eat and the kind of doctrines and the spiritual messages that we get is as important as also the media that we consume, the things we read, the videos we watch, the broadcast messages that we listen to. And therefore to have a wholesome growth of a human being, these three are important. The spiritual growth and the food that you eat, the physical growth, the spiritual growth, and the mental health. And that is informed greatly by the nurturing element. I say there are two elements, nurture and nature. And I think the nurturing element comes more critically for young children.
All right, let's bring in the child psychologist on this one. Macrine, we've said it is very important that we watch what our children are consuming from your line of work. How does this directly impact on the child in as far as what it is that they get exposed to?
Well, the things that we all are exposed to, children and adults together, have an impact on how we end up responding. Now, for children, it's more impactful because they're still in the growth and development stage. A lot of things they still are learning, and hence it's in our interest that we guide, as Dr. Ezekiel has said, that we guide that which we expose them to. Yeah. That being said, I'd just like to bring it out that media has the potential to do good as well as the potential to do harm. So it's up to us to be very discerning as, you know, as the caregivers of these young ones, to help them to be exposed to that which is going to propel them to greater development. Yeah. Okay, and perhaps while still on that point, could you help us understand why is it you will find that there are some more children, some children are more susceptible to what they consume and others really not? Okay, so there's many things that are at play. There's the individual characteristics that would be a factor. And then there are the environmental characteristics, which are also a factor. So depending on how it is that the child is showing up within a given space, say there are two children, their personalities are different, the family dynamics are different, the things to which they are, they are interacting with are different, then you will find that their responsiveness to that which they are seeing is going to be different. So if one child is exposed to media excessively and another one is exposed to it in small doses and has other things happening, then you find the way they respond to that which they're exposed to is going to be different. So it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. It depends on various things. So you'd have to take it in context to make a determination of why and why not.
Okay, now we will contextualize further in a moment. Let's hear from Linda. So clearly there are people, even from the feedback we're already having, who say, I just watch for fun. The rest, I really don't understand when somebody actually acts out what they watch. So what is this in our minds that separates one person from the other?
I think what has been mentioned by Dr. Mutua and the psychologist as well is we have different perspectives when it comes to how we perceive reality. So there are those who will have a bit of some cognitive distortion, meaning that how you look at reality and what is really happening may not be, in keeping with the truth. So for some people, we have a perceptual disturbance, if we may call it, hallucinations or delusions. So someone looks at a movie and sees real characters instead of seeing fiction and understanding that this is a fictional movie. So what happens is they intend to perceive that as the reality. So there's a distortion from what is actually happening in the real world. So that is basically determined by a number of factors. Genetic predisposition. There are people who are more predisposed to mental health disorders and some personality disorders that may put one in such a space where they can have a distorted personality. Things also to do with the emotions that you are in at that space when you're watching that movie. Also to do with how you your past experiences and how you've the other types of content that you've consumed before and how they have influenced the environment around you. So it varies greatly, such that we may go for a movie. I come out, it's a romantic movie, I come out feeling very happy and mellow, and you come out crying and feeling like it's the worst thing that could have happened to you. So it's just the same way. How we perceive is dependent on so much.
All right, so just putting out there the question of the day again, do you believe that what you watch actually has a direct impact on you? In short, we are asking you to speak on your behalf. That hashtag is New Normal, and you can also call us using that number at the bottom of your screen. Now, Dr. Mutua, you have come under fire before for insisting that we need to be conscious about the content we put out there because it exposes our audiences to certain things that are not good for them and sort of poke holes to the moral fabric of society. When did the rain start beating us?
I think, Gladys, the rain started beating us when we lost the, number one, societal structures that used to help in guiding the well-being of a society and the child, and where the child belonged to the community, where the child used to be taken to the grandparents to be given certain values. And when schools closed, even if you're staying in Nairobi, the kids would be sent to up country and they would stay with the parents and learn their language and their culture and do some chores that are related to that community and learn the values of that community and that home and the family. We lost that along the way in the process of rural-urban migration, in the process of liberalization, in the process of globalization. And now with the new technologies and the new media that makes the whole world look like a global village, and where kids are connecting more with the foreign cultures, where our kids cheer and know the names of the players in Arsenal and Manchester United and Liverpool, and they have no idea about the players in Gor Mahia or Harambee Stars or FC Leopards, where kids are more attached to foreign values. Because now the parents became busier with time and our focus left the family and went into materialism. We want to make money by all costs. Life became difficult. So at that point, the community values became distorted and we lost it at that point. Then came early 90s and between 90 and the 2000, and the process of liberalization, especially after the 1997 IPPG, I'm talking about the case of Kenya, where in reaction to the KANU rule, the 24 years of Moi rule, and what was perceived to be dictatorship on the media and suppression of freedom of expression in the media, we went to the other extreme. People wanting to punish Moi and to punish KANU and depart from what we considered our societal norms and our perception of life and that leadership that was guiding us in terms of how do we allow liberalization. So we allowed a catch of anything goes. Liberalized the media without a regulatory framework. And now we started doing catch-up with the Media Council coming into force. I was part of that process when I was Secretary General of KUJ. Then we came up with laws now that even tried to go to the other extreme until we got the new constitution, which again, under the Bill of Rights, gives people freedom to say anything. And even when we try to come up with the computer misuse and cybercrime laws that would guard the space that how people are using that space to ensure that you do not abuse it, the court declared it unconstitutional. Again, the whole issue about having freedom without responsibility and without a balance. And then lastly, of course, now where we are, where there's a catch of anything goes, and everybody for themselves and God for us all, and a situation where the focus in is not in the whole being of the child and the nation. The focus is on me, myself, and I. And that poses a very great danger. Because the moment we depart from the societal norms, we depart from the fear of God. Those things that we were being told, the stories in the Bible, the parables we used to be told by our parents, and the stories that we used to listen to by the fireplace, those things shaped our view of life. Now parents are busy and they are leaving early, like I left to come to your show. 5 in the morning I was awake. And now we are here, and I'll leave here for other meetings, and I'll probably end up home late and not have as much interaction with my children like when my parents were bringing me up, where there was a proper routine, where we wake up and we have breakfast together, where we would meet for dinner. And now life has become distorted.
Okay.
So there we are with a situation where it requires a national conversation on how do we get back to the basics so that we restore our values. And we have to all take responsibility.
And that's what we're doing this morning.
All
Let's hear from our viewers in as far as the conversation is concerned. So do you believe that social media, television, series, movies have any impact on how you view life? And we have a lot of you speaking up on the matter. The first one here is Henry Osoro, who says, everything you do or see, there is a spirit behind it. It might be a good spirit or a bad spirit. Thank you, Henry. We have Anthony Murumba, who says, very true, you are what you consume. There you go. Randy Joseph says, definitely, by beholding, we become changed. The mind is influenced and changed by whatever subject it's made to dwell upon. This ultimately sets the character. Prince Joe Mulupi says, not really, it depends on your principles. Interesting. All right, that's the last one we have for now. Just keep calling us also. Remember that number at the bottom of your screen. You can reach us on the same, and that hashtag is new normal. Now, let's take you back to early January, where 2 high school students on different occasions and in 2 different counties violently attacked their teachers. Now, Anita Konge has more details on the same. We seem to be having a problem with that video, but in reference to the same, let me bring in Macrine. We have seen children that even in playgrounds where you will note a child that is more aggressive than the other child. We've also seen schools really go, get out of hand with the students actually showing more delinquent behavior now, especially after a prolonged stay at home due to the pandemic. And just perhaps to just put more perspective, here's the story.
The student, who's from Mokwerero Day High School, allegedly attacked the teacher for not allowing him to get his old exercise books exchanged for new ones. Police were informed by members of the public that a student had stormed the school compound with a panga. On arrival, police were informed that he wanted to attack the deputy principal, who managed to escape unhurt. Preliminary investigations indicated that the suspect was spotted sharpening the panga by his neighbors for the better part of the previous day, but his motive was not known. This incident comes barely a day after Kisii High School students stabbed his 2 teachers. The 17-year-old has since been arraigned in Kisii and pleaded guilty to the attempted murder offense. The magistrate ruled that the suspect be released on a 50,000 Kenyan shilling cash bail or a bond of 100,000 Kenyan shillings. The Teacher Service Commission has condemned the attacks on teachers in Nyamira and Kisii, calling on Kenyans to help guide the children better. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
So going by that report, Macrine, what does it tell you?
I think it says a lot and also not so much at the same time. Now, looking at the information that is immediately available, it suggests that there could be things that those particular students have experienced and which they have not had an opportunity to express themselves fully and be understood, or if they express themselves, then they did not feel understood. It could also be that they may be having some mental health challenges that have not been diagnosed, and hence It could also speak to the system that exists within the school framework. Does the school support the students to express themselves when they have anything that is of concern to them? And when they express themselves, so do they respond to whatever it is that those students have said needs to be done? Has there been a history of the students, raising their concerns and the concerns going unresponded to, or not getting clear explanations as to why a certain choice of action has been taken,
Okay, Macarena, let's look at it from this point of view. They say for a child, literally, it's monkey see, monkey do. So in this circumstance, let's look at the reaction, all right? So could it be telling of an exposure to violence, whether in real life or even what they consume, whether on traditional media, on the new media?
True. The degree to which what they have seen could be at play is not something to be dismissed. It is highly possible that the students involved have been exposed to an environment where, when things don't go right, the persons who are aggrieved and feel that they have authority act with force, which is something that we do a lot at home as parents. And maybe we don't do it with pangas at hand, but we do it nonetheless. If a child doesn't do as we like them to do, or they do something differently than we expect them to do, there are those of us who will, rein in on them with blows and hits and hitting with whatever it is that we choose as our thing. So by extension, the child then figures that, oh, okay, if I'm aggrieved, then that works. I could go and try it elsewhere. So yes, to your point, it could be a factor.
Okay.
That is at play.
Now, Dr. Mutua alluded to the fact that we lost it when we stopped having quality time with our children to actually express or even be cognizant of such matters or reactions in our children. As parents, is there something that we can do to pull up our socks on this matter? Apart from being there, what else can you look out for?
Parental participation in the rearing of children is not something to be downplayed at any point. And parents remain relevant even in the lives of their adult children. Now, coming back to the younger children, that is our conversation point now, parents need to be deliberate. So granted, as Dr. Mutua says, we have become busier, but the children still remain our responsibility. So can we find the time to just do things with these children? There are studies that have shown that giving the children undivided attention of as little as 15 minutes inside of a week helps them to thrive. Now, 15 minutes in 7 days is not much time. It's not too much to ask for. So can we be more deliberate in our attempts to engage with the children? Do with them things that they enjoy to do. It can even be split into 3 minutes of direct interaction. 5 portions. You have your 15 minutes. So that's not too much to ask. We just need to be very deliberate and know that the presence of a parent, listening to a child, interacting with them on the things that matter to them, makes a whole world of difference. And you don't have to be dictatorial. We just need to be receptive to them. So depending on their developmental stage, you then determine the activities that you engage with them in. They will guide you. Let them guide you. Then be present.
Okay, let me take you back, Linda, to the point you made about other people struggling with mental illness and perhaps making them more susceptible to such impact from social media or whatever kind of media. Somebody is asking, I am okay and I believe I'm fine, but when I watch a horror movie, I lose my mind, so I prefer not to watch it. Or if I watch action movies, I get more anxiety and stuff like that, so I'd rather not watch it. So what are we saying? Are we saying that a normal, healthy human being could be exposed to certain content that could easily push them to a certain side?
I think at the end of the day, it depends with our personalities. and how we regulate our emotions. Because whenever you're provoked, there's a certain type of emotion that you'll show us. So for some people, it will be hitting the wall and banging doors. For some people, it will be crying. For some people, it will be screaming. So depending on how you regulate your emotions, depends now on what we see now on the outside. So at the end of the day, it's how our personality basically is, and that will now be very dependent on, as Dr. said, nature versus nurture. So even within the same family, you'll find different responses between the children on how they react to certain movies and certain games or music or whatever it is. So it's about understanding yourself first and what kind of emotions you get from certain type of events or certain type of genres of movies. And now once you understand that, you'll be able to know, okay, this is something that I'll not feel too comfortable about. For example, I cannot watch horror movies. I mean, it just gives me nightmares after that. And
that
that's
makes
just
the two of us.
And that's just, it doesn't make me or you better than the next person or worse than the next person. It's just how your personality is, and understanding this type of content elicits this type of emotion in me, which makes me uncomfortable. And this feeling of uncomfort may not be too nice for the next few days. It may predispose me to something else. And for some people, that may predispose them maybe to sleep problems. That sleep problems may now predispose you now to maybe depression or anxiety or difficulty concentrating. So it becomes a vicious cycle of, or rather cascade of events.
Just to support what Linda is saying, I think like the scripture says, we were all born, chance and time is given to all of us. We were all born into this world same way. But the experiences we go through right from birth, how we interact with our parents, the care, the love we are shown, the environment, shapes our personalities. And then as we grow up without knowing, our subconscious minds start heaping certain either traits that are either positive or negative. That now when you come to the environment where we are today, where the media triggers those things, either through horror movies or romantic movies, we begin to relate with those experiences in a different way depending on what we have gone through in life. Our experiences in life, whether it was deprivation, whether it is the stories now we are hearing about, Mkokoteni and this and the other, and the class conversations that make it look like you are rich because I'm poor, or I'm poor because you are rich, and that kind of conversation. And how do we translate that if I'm living next to a rich person? Because when I was growing up, we used to glorify rich people. We knew family Akina so-and-so, they are richer than us, and they are great. In fact, we used to adore them because they are rich. Now, it looks like we are demonizing that, and the kids, therefore, are growing up hating rich people. They're growing up hating success. And it's a very warped logic, if you ask me. But these experiences are coming out of what they are hearing, what they are seeing, and what they're watching in the media. So you have been abused, you have been neglected, you have been deprived, and then now you watch a program on TV, it triggers those thoughts and you react differently. If it's horror and there was a time you're under shock, we absorb shock differently. So we need to understand that the process of bringing up a child must be programmed in a certain way, that the rites of passage and the communal processes are determined, the role of the parent, the role of religious institutions, the role of institutions of learning, and the society in general, and the community structures, where kids need to know the chief, right? I doubt my children, myself, know who their sub-chief is. I mean, from where we live. I doubt Gladys, you also know.
Yeah.
You know, you don't care, really, because they don't affect you immediately. But we grew up in a situation where we knew mkubwa, and a sense of authority, and what authority means, and that it is for our good. Because when there's a situation, we will run to that authority. We grew up respecting the policeman. We grew up respecting the teachers. We grew up respecting religious leaders. And parents, of course. I mean, we used to say, Mom will kill me. You watched during the late Simeon Nyachae's burial 2 days ago, one of his sons saying how he was punished for misbehaving and put in a pickup with goats. And this is a child of a powerful, rich man. And sent, he was punished and sent to Nyeri by a pickup while the others were going by a Mercedes. And he didn't kill himself. He got there safely because it's a process of inculcating values that was happening. And he knew he had misbehaved and there was a punishment. There are rewards and there are punishment. So until we come to that basic principle, that the growing up of a person is informed by the experiences they go through, and the society has a role on the child and that person. Until we begin to realize that we can't exist in isolation, then we begin to value what South Africa they call Ubuntu, that I am because you are, and I am because we are. And that collective responsibility where I will not do things just for self-gratification, then we have lost the war.
Okay.
So we must begin to ask ourselves, how do I take responsibility as an individual, as a government official, as a parent, as a child of a person, as a husband, as a father? How do I begin to be a good person? Because there are values, Gladys. A good person is a good person whether they're educated or they're uneducated, whether they're rich or poor. And those are the values we need to zero in, not the status, but being good and the qualities and the positive social values.
Okay, so at that point, I hear we have Damaris on the line. Where is she joining us from? Machakos. Damaris, what's your question or comment? Damaris? Damaris, can you hear us? Okay, we seem to have lost her, but at this point, Linda, we are saying we need to also be very self-aware as to the things that we can handle and things we cannot handle. But then again, people are not aware that there are pre-existing issues that make them susceptible to certain things in the future. What are some of these telltale signs that can make you think, you know what, this is not for me, and to guard my mental health, then I need to stay away from?
Okay, so I think it comes down to where you can identify these signs by yourself, and some of these signs that you cannot be able to identify that may be identified by the people around you, your family, your friends. So when it comes to self, things like how you respond to, if you find yourself being more irritable or responding to anger, I mean, responding to things in an angry way, very small things trigger you off the edge. You find yourself wanting to self-isolate, to want to watch movies or spend too much time on social media at the expense of face-to-face contact. Or if you find yourself needing to either not sleep or cutting down on sleep to maybe be on Facebook or Instagram or watch this Netflix movie for 5, 6, 7 hours at the expense of sleep, at the expense of your work, at the expense of human interaction, then there is definitely a problem. And those are things that you yourself can be able to pick out. We have apps that are able to detect for us how long we spend on various social media platforms. That could be a good place to even start. But self-reflection in itself and self-meditation, having some time during the week or at the end of the week, preferably during the weekend, just looking back, how have I spent my week this week? What have I spent time on? What goals did I have for the week? What did I achieve? What didn't I achieve? What could be better? What did I spend most of my time on, and what could be better the next week? On the other hand, there are things we may not be able to really pick out by ourselves. That's where our friends, our family come in handy. Things like delusions, and how we define a delusion in the mental health field is basically a fixed, firm belief that cannot be changed regardless of whatever information or evidence I show you that whatever you're perceiving is not true. No matter how much we try to convince you, you are convinced that this is the truth. So you see, that's not a person that you'll tell to self-reflect. Of course, even if they self-reflect, that is still the truth. So your family members, your friends may be able to pick out this and say, okay, there's this weird or this odd or bizarre thing they talk about, or this bizarre behavior they keep going back to. And it's very important for the family to just accept that sometimes things may not, our minds may not function the way they're ideally supposed to, and it's okay to seek help, because we usually try and downplay mental health issues and downplay when someone is not feeling okay or acting right, and wait until things have blown out of proportion. That's now when we're like, okay, maybe they're not fine, and then I'll start bringing in the healthcare aspect of it.
Okay, and Maureen, for kids, it can be a little bit difficult considering kids are kids. I mean, they are hyperactive, they are always up to one thing or the other. Question is, how do you pick out that a child is not acting as a usual child or at their age?
I think several things. One, you need to look at the developmental state that the child is in. And with that in mind, there are certain milestones that they're expected to have achieved. So say it's a 2-year-old, you don't expect them to be very refined in their movement. You know, they're moving, but not very refined. They're talking, they are not very wordy. They still don't know so much. They have the emotional expressions, and they are prone to throwing tantrums, which is their way of communicating, and that is normal. You know, when you get to say a 7-year-old, if they're throwing tantrums in the way that a 2-year-old is throwing tantrums, then that is off. So the key here is to understand, where is this child developmentally? What is their usual behavior? So you need to have observed the child and known this is usual. So if a child is broadly introverted, then it is true for them that they will not be, playing out so much, and they have just a small circle of friends with whom they interact, and they express themselves more freely in the house than they do outside. That's their normal. Now, if that changes, where they're not even hanging out with their small circle of friends, they're not being as expressive as they have been, then that becomes an item to be checked. So the baseline here is, what is their usual and what is happening that is now not in line with their usual self. If they're going. Yes, go ahead.
All right. Now we have Damaris back on the line from Machakos. Damaris, what's your question or comment?
I was asking this, some children are so restricted from watching some programs in the TV. Hello?
Yes.
But when they get to this age of around 20, those who are restricted so much are the ones who become bad girls and boys.
Yeah.
Those who have been exposed, they are able to discuss what they have watched. And you somehow tend to get along together with the current world.
Yes.
Those who are restricted, they seem to sneak from adults. They seem to know more, but in an unhealthy way, I think.
Okay. All right, Damaris, we hear you and thank you for chiming in on the conversation. And Dr. Mutua, this has been seen, I think, in different age groups. Those ones that had very strict parents, did not give them exposure to television, to their friends and such like things, are the ones who seem to have, to be hyperactive in their adulthood, and they want to try everything and anything. So how do you draw the line? Because it's good to shepherd them, but also it's good to allow them to experience the world and know the difference between good and evil.
Gladys, and I think what Damaris is saying is true to a certain extent. It's not the absolute truth. It's not what happens every time.
Yes.
But let me say there's a difference between control and restriction and having a conversation and a relationship with your children. And where the environment was toxic to the point where the child was just obeying the rules and there was no attempt by the parents to create a relationship and understanding, that can result to that child, the day they become adults and they have the freedom, they are curious to explore and to do everything. There's a joke that be careful with the things you didn't do when you were a child, because when you start doing them when you're an adult, you really go to the other extreme. That happens. But let me say, the conversation again goes to societal values and the family and the role of family in bringing up a child. And what exposure are they given? What are the rules in the home? Because there must be rules, and if those rules are well articulated and followed by everybody, and they're not selective, so the parents also play their part. They also lead by example. They don't preach water and drink wine, and they try to do the best. I always say there are no experts. There are no excellent parents, but we all can try and be the parents that we can be. Do our best and give the best time we can. Give the best guidance and counseling and modeling, mentorship to our children, and bring them up and take responsibility. Do the best that we can. The best you can do is your best. But not shift the blame, because Gladys, and I want to ask the psychologist, what happens to also the parent who is depressed, bringing up a depressed child in an environment where the parent is actually the one who is even bearing the brunt of life and the realities and the pain, and they themselves are not also within a societal structure where they can get help. And this is where the conversation about societal structures and social capital becomes critical, in my view, so that you learn from the day you are young that what Linda is saying, it's okay to ask for help. You are not weak, and you are not you are not a loser if you're asking for help. And there's pride in asking for help. That's what our teachers used to encourage us in school, that put up your hand. And even if you give the wrong answer, you ask for help and you can be helped. Number two, that there's need for balance in everything that we do. Because what Damaris was alluding to is excessive control by some parents. Excessive control that does not give the right of to the child to be heard or to express themselves. That will lead to, when they become adults and they get the space. That's what we were doing when we went to university, because we were not allowed to see girls. Now we wanted to see all of them. And then we went boom. Yeah. And I saw that behavior destroying a lot of people in our generation, because they were coming from those kind of backgrounds. Not everybody. Yeah. So the important thing is to know, one, you have to balance. And you grow up, you need that balance, and that has to be instilled in our children. There's time to play, to be yourself. There's time to be serious. There's time to be strict with your child. There's time to relax and laugh and pray together and play together. That freedom without responsibility is a recipe for chaos. And the parent must even be able to remove the remote control, shut the TV, and set the rules in the home. The challenge is on all of us. Sometimes we set the rules and we don't follow them.
Yes.
I have seen parents who struggle and say, we are going to have rules when you get into this house, put your phone somewhere. But we don't follow that. Sometimes we want to have just dinner and no interruption. But you find the mother is watching Maria, the child is on Netflix, the father is on Twitter, or they are on WhatsApp. And it's confusion. And I think it's just important to say we have a problem in this family. We need to begin to have rules that we follow, all of us, and we need to let the child know, even when you discipline them, it is out of love. You are not doing it to hurt them or to hate them. You are doing it because you love them. And then they need to hear the stories that Kennedy Nyachai was telling, that he became a fine man. He turned out to be fine. Some of us were really given some brutal punishment, but we grew up fine. So we should not tell those stories like everybody who punishes their child or disciplines their child, they hate them. Because again, there is over-glorification of that kind of narrative that makes it look like no parent should touch a child. Because if you're doing that, you hate them. And when you bring those stories in the media and you overemphasize that kind of narrative, then what happened to discipline? It looks like it is evil to discipline my child. It's not.
Dr.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I need to take a short break at this point. But before I even take it, I have Peter from Rungai who'd like to chime in. Peter, what's your question or comment?
Okay, my comment. What I have to put in is a comment.
Go ahead, Peter.
It's a comment. I appreciate what the panelists are doing.
Yes.
And let me say this. I agree that watching has a lot of influence to what is happening. Let me give you an example of the MPs or our political leaders who are fighting in funerals. What our young people seeing? They are seeing their leaders fighting, and then they fight. They become violence. Let me take the issue of pregnancy. And we are seeing very many young people are indulging in early pregnancies. Even the teachers themselves, when they are doing it, the children are seeing. Then why can't they do the same? So watching has a lot of influence as our youth grow. And in a family sphere, what we parents do at our homes, what are we doing in our homes? We do things this way, and then the children copy. And then they just do that. And I would like to ask Mutua to give me an appointment. I have a lot to talk to him in terms of media. And I think our leaders are the ones who are giving us a wrong signal to our youth. What they are doing, nothing happens. The MPs who fought in a funeral, they fought, and there is a law which says if you fight in public, you are taken to court and you are given a punishment. They are not being punished. So the children in schools will do the same. So Kiboko must come in. Kiboko must be accepted in schools. Thank you so much. But I would like Mutua to give me an appointment. A lot to talk to our youth.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Major Retired Peter from Rungai, thank you for calling in and for your contribution. We take a short break on your world. When we come back, let's talk about what it is about certain content that makes it so attractive. We'll be right back.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji.
Mdosi wako kwa sawa? Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hi guy, what
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
Breaking news from Molfix. Let's see what they're developing right now.
Pants is just for me. It really feels very comfy.
Molfix pants with anatomic fit technology. New Molfix pants, an invention from babies for babies.
You should also try Molfix.
He came from one of Kenya's most disadvantaged pastoral communities, the Gabra, but he excelled in almost everything he did. Godana was admitted to the University of Nairobi to study law. He was the first person in Marsabit to earn a university degree and a PhD.
What took him to politics was his desire to serve his community.
He and 10 others would die in a tragic air crash while on a mission to bring peace to warring communities in his home district, Marsabit.
Ni ukweli imeshuka bei, smartphone ya nguvu 4G, screen kubwa ya kuwatch game ni 3999 pekee. Ni ukweli.
Pata smartphone ya nguvu kwa bei nafuu kutoka kwa duka la Safaricom au dila leo. Safaricom, for you.
On the trend at 10 p.m.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today we are focusing on the effects of media consumption. Still with us in studio, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, who is the CEO, Kenya Film Classification Board, Dr. Linda Nyamute, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and Macrina Buka, who's joining us virtually. She is a child psychologist. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. And we still have feedback from you, even as we try and understand from your perspective if you believe there is influence from social media, series, movies, TV content that you watch. Does it really change who you are? Now, Henry Osoro says, yeah, most programs expose our children and lead to bad morals. Another here from Kibet Bernard, who says you can also introduce your child to real life, positive role models. Ways to do this could be joining local community groups, supporting clubs, or mentoring programs. Thank you, Kibet. We have Jimmy Karuri, who says, no, what one watches doesn't influence who they become, but how they think. Watching Cristiano Ronaldo play football doesn't make you a footballer. It can only affect how you think, the courage and the commitment. Jimmy, we hear you. Delucci says, so true. The moment parents relegated their parenting duties of their young kids to TV, soaps, and social media, that was the beginning of our fall. Thank you, Delucci. And that hashtag again is new normal, and you can also give us a call on that number at the bottom of your screen. So when we went to break, I said we'll come back and talk about something else that we also need to be cognizant about. It seems that there's certain content that is so attractive to the masses, and the question is, why, Dr. Nyamute? Why is it that some people, or there is content that just people are attracted to? For example, we have music videos where people are, as they say, half naked, but it seems to get so many eyeballs. When you get another video with everyone fully dressed, it does not really attract as many eyeballs. What are we seeing here?
I think it goes back to what Dr. Mutua has been trying to say. Values at the end of the day, but also as a society, generally, everybody wants to fit in. We all want to be part of something. So when something is trending, we have this FOMO, as they call it, fear of missing out. So you open Facebook and find everyone is talking about the lovely dress that Gladys has worn today. Yeah. So everybody wants to know, okay, what is this exactly she was wearing? And it's because there's this fear of missing out. You want to fit in. Everybody wants to fit in. Then also when it comes to the younger people who are mostly influenced by this, is peer pressure can play a very big role in terms of what you watch. So you hear someone has watched the series Killing Eve, and you're like, okay, I also want to go and watch it, even when you do not like horror, because everybody is doing it, everybody is watching it. And I think that's one thing that leads our young adults, teenagers and young adults, into a lot of wrong decisions, including drugs, early pregnancies, as someone mentioned as well, and all this cybercrime, and basically even mental health issues that stem from excessive social media usage. So it's basically peer pressure, fear of missing out, and also how the media, the kind of attractiveness the media puts out there. So also see how we report crime. Sometimes it may not be that a crime is more, like for example suicides. It's not necessarily that they are more, but the fact that they are being reported on a day-to-day basis now creates this sort of copycat mentality, where now this young person will be like, okay, so this 17-year-old, so KCPE or KCSE was so difficult, and they did this to themselves. I can also do the same. Why not? So it's sort of peer pressure, copycat, imitating sort of space where you'll watch what you hear is more trending.
Okay,
Yeah.
and to be fair, the mental task force, or rather the task force put together to check on the mental health of Kenyans, actually said put the media task not to be elaborating about the details of a suicide case, because there are people who actually copycat the same. And speaking of which, Macrine, when we talk about copycats, especially there is this teenagehood where things seem to be harder than usual. I think anyone who was a teenager, the parent will say it was a difficult time, even if it was in the 70s. But it seems to be getting harder today. So what is this about this teenager that would make them think doing this thing, even if it is a bad thing in society, it's a cool thing to do?
Okay, so the thing about teenage is that it's that stage where the individual is moving away from being a child and moving towards being an adult, and they're therefore in between being a child and being an adult in terms of their thought process, in terms of their actions. They are childlike in some instances, they are adult-like in some instances, and then they're just themselves anyways. And they're also differentiating themselves from the parents. Now, that being said, their association with their peers becomes a very, very critical part of their development. And even as that happens, they still need the guidance of the parents, because remember, they are transitioning from being children to becoming adults, and hence is a learning process. Now, when they don't get the necessary guidance from a responsible adult, then it means that they will just gravitate towards their peers who, like them, are not sufficiently developed. So they will be guiding themselves in a certain way, which way may not be the most optimal. So it's incumbent upon us as caregivers to be present, to offer them guidance, to allow them the space to also interact with their peers, and in the process get to differentiate themselves as unique individuals from ourselves, being their parents and caregivers.
Now, even as we talk about the effects of media consumption, are we saying that at times what we see is a deep search for identity?
Yeah, so that is there. That is one of the milestones of adolescence, to identify and discover who you are uniquely as an individual. So yes, I am a member of this family. I am a child of Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. I am a brother, sister to A, B, and C. But who am I as myself? And as myself, I get my own individuality in relationship to the people that I associate with. So it can be argued that the teenagers will gravitate towards the groups that espouse the values that they hold dear to themselves. Yeah. And hence, if the values that they have been brought up with are values that are progressive, value adding, and health promoting, then their friends are likely to be the kind that do the same. If, on the other hand, the value systems that they have been exposed to, or they have not been exposed to and therefore have created their own, are such that they are not value adding to themselves, then they'll gravitate towards the people who tend to elevate what they consider to be important to them and which may not necessarily be socially appropriate.
Okay.
So as caregivers, we want to be careful when we are pointing fingers at our children's friends, because by the time your child is going to that friendship group, there is something that has motivated them in their, family setup, home setup, their usual setup, to make that group attractive.
Aha. Food for thought there for caregivers, parents out there. And Dr. Mutua, I know you have really criticized the media and the role it plays in this. But then again, I go back to that question. What is it about some content that makes it so attractive? And how can we strike the balance? Because, again, the law of supply and demand. The media is offering what people are demanding for.
Gladys, it's about balance and also values. And I think these values need to be inculcated both within the media. There should be a code of ethics, and there is, that should define what the role of a journalist is to pursue the truth and report that truth. In reporting, you pursue fairness, accuracy, and objectivity. That's the journalism I learned while I worked here.
Still applies.
Absolutely. But then when it comes to the TV and the social media, I think there's a sense in which there's a failure of upholding certain ethos and tenets of journalism and broadcasting. The CA, Communications Authority of Kenya, has come up with a programming code for free to air, and I think now it has gone to pay to view channels, which we have been given the role to determine the rating of the programs. And I think what is critical is to determine what program airs at what time. I know there's been that push for over-commercialization where the profit motive defines our work, and the person who is bringing more money to the media owner is the one who is glorified. So whether you are selling sex in the morning and talking about programs that are adult in nature, at the disregard of the programming code, you seem to be paid more. And then lack of proper legislative framework that penalizes people who behave like that. And the other thing is the challenge of having, and I say this with tremendous respect, comedians who have not been trained in those tenets that you know, Gladys, but who happen to be talented in different ways to entertain and to make people laugh and to just entertain us. But then holding a microphone and determining the kind of content and information they are pushing to us. And that information shaping our views and our perspectives about certain issues. That again is a very dangerous move, and yet it is happening in our day and time. The other thing is, of course, failure of leadership at so many levels. And I want to say it's not just the media to blame. The media wouldn't do that kind of content if there was no consumer. So there's also somebody who is allowing their children to want that content, because if you look at the audiences that people are targeting, including beer companies, it's the children. That's why beer adverts go up during when schools close, certain products of adult nature. And we have been fighting that, because you ask yourself, I think the druggists know where to find beer. So how come it is intensified when schools close? And that's a question we have been asking ourselves. And the thing is, that is the market that you want to target, so that as they grow up, they will like your products. Now, is it responsible to target my child with those products at the wrong age? And it is not even just targeting them to understand, because sometimes we say not suitable for 18. But the way we are doing it, it glorifies, it glamorizes. You know, when we are classifying content, even the taking of the beer, we look at it as classification or as examiners, and we can ban your advert and allow another one just because of the way you glamorized and glorified. You know, the way you are holding it and the what you are saying and your body language and the Mara Kama Simba, and you are adoring this thing. And my child is watching. And if you are a celeb, if it is Gladys Gachanja doing it, it may be different from Ezekiel Mutua or Linda. So celebrity culture again that came in, and we gave those guys the tools that influence our perception and our way of life to pump and to bombard society with the culture of when a dog bites a man, it's not news. But when man bites dog, it's news. In other words, news is what is bizarre, obscene, controversial. When a politicians goes to a station and speaks nicely, talks development, they are not very popular. But the one who is insulting others and doing funny things is the one who gets media coverage. So there's a sense in which you have also conditioned these politicians to know that unless I behave in a certain way, I will never attract the media. And they compete in doing all manner of comedy and all manner of things. So the thing is, we got to take responsibility. There are rules everywhere, and we need to obey them. They need to be obeyed by everybody in society. And the media needs to balance. I'm just asking for a balance. There are products for adults. Those films like the one you're talking that influenced this guy in Kiambu by his own confession, it's not for young children. So if you allowed a young child to watch that film, then you impaired their moral judgment. And they could have ended up, because they watched that movie while they were too young to make sound judgment. So the thing is, if it's not rated by KFCB, suitable for this age, tell your child to go to sleep. And that's why we say the watershed period should be respected. Watershed is between 5 in the morning to 10 in the evening. Within that period, bring programs that are suitable for family viewing and listening. Yeah. After 10, we expect the parent to take responsibility. That's why we have refused to get drawn into the conversations about programs that come after 10, because that's a law. It comes after 10, then let the parent take responsibility, tell your child to go to sleep, or ensure that the TV is not available for them if you're not in the home. Okay. So it's a question of how do we get back to the basics, and all of us play our role, from the parent to the government to learning institutions to the media. And I want to say the media has a bigger responsibility. You can help society by setting the right agenda, and help our children by giving them edifying programs that talk about our culture, our values, and help them to know, to value hard work, to value honesty, and not to glorify people who are landing in choppers and you don't question their wealth. Instead, focus on glorifying heroes in the village, heroes in the community, who do good works, but they may not have a lot of money, who are kind and are loving, and they help their neighbors, and they do it not because of of plenty, but because this is the good thing to do. So how can the media begin to bring those stories? How can filmmakers, how can our artists begin to glorify positive social values and demonize when people do bad things? You sing bad with songs that deride them in a way that they will not want to do that again. Okay. Ile mchongwano should be in a way that a child feels, yes, I've been praised because I've done something good. But this one feels, when you do this, tutakuchongoa, you know. That should be the approach to bring back the values to society.
Okay, very well said, and I'm glad that Dr. Mutua has put out his last words on this conversation, because I believe you have a meeting at 8:30 that you need, or rather at 9 that you need to leave to at 8:30. But before we release you, let me hear from Makreen. Now, there's somebody in our feedback who said, isn't it also important to expose your children to the realities of life and perhaps now shepherd them through them? Because the shock is, or the culture shock is, that a child will grow up sheltered, then they go into the world and they are shocked. And unfortunately, most often than not, they take up those things that they never were exposed to. Your thoughts?
So the point that they raise on exposure is correct. What needs to happen is that there needs to be guidance around that exposure. So as a parent, you need to determine, like I said earlier, what is the developmental stage of this child, what is age appropriate for them, and hence expose them to it, and then be open to have conversations around them. So I'll give an example on matters sex and sexuality. There are many parents who are not comfortable to discuss issues of sex and sexuality, other than saying that, you know, sex is a bad thing, wait until you're an adult, which is not sufficient for, you know, for children growing up and knowing how to navigate life, you know. So the more discerning parent will have those conversations with the children at the different ages. They will have them interact with the content in the media and in the print, you know, that helps to start conversations that then they can talk about the different aspects of sex and sexuality that enable them to be, better adjusted citizens when they become adults. So yes, expose them, but expose them in a structured way, be present to guide the conversations, answer questions as they are asked. What you don't know, be honest, to the fact that I don't know the answer to that. Go and look for the answer if you can. If you don't get it, come back and give that feedback. Don't try to be a superhero. I mean, that's something that I strongly advocate against. Parents need to demonstrate to children that they are as human as we come. Dr. Ezekiel mentioned, if you don't know, seek to get the answer from elsewhere. Okay. And if the answer is not forthcoming, make it known.
All right. Thank you for that. Now, before we take a short break on your world, some of your feedback that I have on my timeline. We have George MacLeod who says, yes, social media has positively made an effect on one, especially my status in the society, has risen from one point to another. Social media, that is Twitter, has made me appear on a national TV, which gave me mileage. I guess it's the make and break nature of social media. Abach Kobienda says, yeah, I think they condition you in a way. If you watch too much of them, I would suggest teenagers are mostly affected since they are in self-discovery. We have another one here from Samson Monzia who says, remember that you are feeding your soul and at the same time you are rewiring your subconscious mind. You become exactly what you feed your soul. Well, keep that feedback coming through. That is hashtag New Normal, even as we understand. If you believe that what you watch actually has an influence on you. At this point, we would like to say goodbye to Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, who is the CEO, Kenya Film Classification Board, and thank you for being part of such an amazing conversation and one that seems that it needs more forums to have this kind of discourse because it is a vital part of society. For now, we take a short break. We'll be back.
Working together today, it is creating opportunities for a lifetime of happiness. The future is bright because you can always bank on family. Family Bank, with you for life.
From far with you. I even gifted you a magnificent house. Rosa, it's the thought that counts. Please help me.
When it comes to fever, you need to be both. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in 15 minutes and is gentle on the tummy. Panadol Baby and Infant, tough on fever, gentle on your child.
With the Stay Soft refill, saving money is as easy as snip, pour, mix with water and shake. Stay Soft refill. It's 2 liters of Stay Soft for up to 30% less.
To achieve great things in life, you must do little things every day, like the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate.
1, wake up. 2, brush up. 3, smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea.
Do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate and give yourself a future to smile about.
New Year comes with New Year deals. Renew your corporate subscription and get a bonus. Subscribe to Nation e-paper for 3 months and get 1 week absolutely free. 6 months and get 2 weeks absolutely free. 1 year and get 3 weeks absolutely free. To sign up, visit epaper.nationmedia.com or email subscription@ke.nationmedia.com. Offer valid till 28th February 2021.
Timeless love.
It's sad to see that Roberta and you are getting married without love and without knowing anything about your old relationships. Let's see if she doesn't give you a surprise.
You know something about Roberta?
Perhaps you still have enough time to change your mind about that ridiculous wedding.
Timeless love.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Our core conversation today is the effects of media consumption. Still with my panelists, Dr. Mutua had to leave, but we still have Dr. Linda Nyamute, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and we also have Macreen, who is a child psychologist, still with us virtually. But before we get back to that conversation, ladies, let's look at the other world and blasting catchy pro-farmer songs from a speaker. An electric blue tractor rattled down an Indian village road collecting pails of milk. Just some of the donations sustaining massive protest camps outside New Delhi. More than 2 months after the first farmers set up camps on the capital's borders, tens of thousands more have joined them, calling for the repeal of new agriculture laws. The farmers who have slept outdoors through the winter cold are being supported by an army of small villages in the northern states neighboring Delhi. Villagers raised their fists and chanted Zindabad, long live, in reply to someone yelling Kisan Ekta, which means Farmers United, a rallying cry often heard at the protests.
एक तो यो है ना इसमें रखियो ये साथ में बैठ के वीडियो
Myanmar's anti-coup protesters were out again on the streets Tuesday carrying flags, placards and banners. Now some protest by pretending to be dead on the ground with their eyes covered by pieces of cloth. Now I want more people to join the protests. We don't want to be seen as weak, says one of the protesters who is a university student. We have to resist so we won't live under military dictatorship rather. Now Myanmar's generals imposed a second straight overnight internet shutdown into Tuesday, ignoring international condemnation as they work to grind down a popular uprising against their coup. Now, in the 2 weeks since troops ousted Aung San Suu Kyi and took the civilian leader into custody, big urban centers and isolated village communities alike have been in open revolt. Elsewhere, Norwegians, the saying goes, are born with skis on their feet. But with the lack of snow and the pandemic this year leaving many in despair, authorities are bringing snow now and ski trails to downtown Oslo. For the first few weeks, big trucks have been dumping hundreds of cubic meters of fluffy white stuff made by snow cannons parked on the hills outside the capital in the city's still green parks. Now parked down or groomed with cross-country trails, the parks have transformed into winter wonderlands for skiing enthusiasts of all ages. Little children on excursions with their daycare groups, active seniors and office workers taking a break from their work-from-home schedule. The World Health Organization has given emergency use approval to AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccines, allowing distribution to some of the world's poorest countries to begin.
Although both companies are producing the same vaccine, because they are made in different production plants, they required separate reviews and approvals. WHO emergency use listing assesses and assures the quality, safety, and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines and is a prerequisite for vaccines to be distributed by COVAX.
We have the facility up and running to start distributing vaccines this month, February and March and June and July. And we have already secured 2 billion doses through the facility. And the good thing about the COVAX facility is that actually countries don't need to go bilaterally. When we say bilateral, countries don't need to go one by one to the different companies trying to get the best price.
Now back to a conversation of the day, and it's the effects of media consumption, and a lot of you speaking about the different ways they perceive this conversation. Remember the question of the day: do you believe that what you watch, social media, series, movies, whatever is out there, even the video games that you play, have some sort of an influence on who you become? That is what would like to hear from you. That hashtag is new normal, and you can also call us using the number at the bottom of your screen. Now, Linda, there's something I have mentioned here, video games. This is another whole new world, and we've seen children get into this space, adults get into this space, but also it's had impact on how people view certain content. For example, aggression. Do you believe there's a direct relationship between gaming and aggressive behavior?
Gladys, I think it goes back to the point where some people are just more predisposed to aggressive behavior or emotional dysregulation. And that can be attributed to, as we said, upbringing, the temperament as they were growing up, and also things to do with even attachment style, how they grew up, the attachment between the people who are close to them, parents being the first people a child is attached to. So if they came from a space that was extremely abusive, extremely violent, and they go into this virtual space, and they're games that they're so engaging such that the person is literally almost inside that game. So those virtual reality games. So for some people, they are what you call edge sitters. And that means they just have, like, they don't need much. For you to probably take much for you to get to that point of aggression where you want maybe to hit the wall. For someone else, that's their first response. For someone else, the first response when they feel aggrieved is to maybe slap or throw a punch at someone's face. For some people, they can't get physically violent unless provoked so much by the certain stimuli. So for edge sitters, they don't need much to, you know, get them to that aggression or that criminal behavior. And I think that's one thing that pushes some people to becoming violent in this virtual game space. So you see now, in that space, they're playing and they're killing this one and killing that one and killing that one. So when they come back to reality or the real world, at times when the perception is impaired in cases of maybe a mental illness, psychotic disorders and the likes, where the perception is impaired, then they may act out, or rather act on those emotions that they act on during when they're playing the video games.
Okay, so let's talk about nature versus nurture. So I am okay, I do not have a history of mental illness, I just love to play my games. But then again, overindulgence in it kind of skews me towards a certain personality trait or reaction. Is that possible?
It can, because even as we say nature versus nurture, there's a genetic predisposition to mental illness that runs within families. But even so, it's not quite a big percentage compared to the number of people who eventually develop the illness. For example, let's use bipolar disorder, for example. Everywhere, there's a very strong genetic predisposition that runs within families. But we have other people who have no family history of the same, and they still get that. So environment plays a very big role as well. Stresses, things to do with trauma, whether childhood trauma, could be physical, sexual, emotional, even emotional neglect can predispose one to any mental illness, including addiction. And gaming addiction is also a mental health issue. So yes, there's the nature part where you're maybe just generally predisposed to developing this, and that's why you'll find we can be playing games and then I'm addicted, I can't go to school, I can't go to work, I can't function, I can't eat, I can't sleep. I just want to be on the gaming. But then someone else probably may not have the same predisposition as me.
Okay, let's bring in Maureen. I know there is a debate out there with some people saying that gaming is actually good for kids because it enhances their motor skills. But then again, there are others who say no, what you expose them to is what they're actually going to take up as a reality. How do you balance this out?
So one of the ways in which that can be sorted is checking out what is the kind of game or games that you expose them to. Now, if there are games that are promoting cooperation, collaboration, there are studies out there that show that when they participate in games such as those, then their degree of empathy is enhanced, their ability to be collaborative and to be willing to engage in helping behavior with others is enhanced. On the other hand, if it is that they are very aggressive kind of games and they are not age appropriate as well, because that needs to be checked, then they are sort of desensitized to empathetic kind of orientations, and they also have an enhanced sensitivity to things that could be considered to be negative. So for example, a child who engages in a lot of violent kind of video gaming is likely to react very violently when they are walking along the corridors of school and one of their schoolmates bumps onto them. Their thinking in the first instance is more likely to be that this person is looking to cause me harm, whilst it could just be an innocent, bump. So there is a need to be deliberate in what it is that they're exposed to, and also to be deliberate in the duration within which they're exposed to that which they're exposed to. And also to check, if it's being said to be educational, is it truly educational, or is it things that are teaching learning by rote? Because learning is an active process. It's not just memorization. So who are the authors behind this content that the child is being exposed to? And what objectives were they desiring to be met as they set up to create that content? So the caregivers need to be very deliberate. You can't just sit there and say, okay, this is the most popular thing. I want my child to be connected, not to miss out, like Dr. Linda had said, fear of missing out. I don't want them to miss out, or they're whining too much. I don't want to deal with that noise. So let me just get them what they want to know. You want to be more deliberate in your engagement. So there are good things that can come out of it, but it has to be structured. It needs to be supervised. It needs adult presence to make it, optimal.
Okay, even as we bring this conversation to a close, we've talked about the importance of regulation. So whether it's stakeholders, whether it's from self or whether it's from society, it's good to be aware about the effects of social or rather media consumption. So going back to self-regulation, For example, last year was a difficult year for many, and there's some people, more reports saying that guys were getting affected by the news they consumed. You know, sad news after sad news after sad news, and it just was spiking the anxiety and depression levels in society. So with that kind of knowledge, what would you put out there for each one of us to always remember, even as we expose ourselves to different mediums?
I think it's important to first be self-aware. I think once you're self-aware, you're able now to understand everything else about yourself. So if I'm self-aware, I understand that if I watch this kind of content at night, I will not be able to sleep, or it will induce a panic attack, for example. And understanding that, I'll make sure I do not consume this content at certain times of the day, or I don't consume this content at all. Or if I consume this content, maybe I can call a friend or call a professional if it's someone who's been on follow-up for any mental health or any type of disorder for that matter. So self-awareness is the first thing. Then after now you're self-aware, there's now there's self-care. What do you do to protect yourself now? Now I'm aware that, okay, this kind of things trigger certain emotions in me. What do I do to protect myself in this space? And then now self-care things now come to do with spending time. Maybe you regulate the amount of time you spend on social media. Make sure you spend some time with people who know you well, people who add value, if I may use that word, whether they're role models, whether there's family, whether they're friends, people who add value to your life. And also make sure you get good enough sleep, eating healthy. I mean, things we take for granted, eating healthy and staying physically active, being in that space of protecting, caring for yourself. Then now you protect yourself from, what if I get into a space where this kind of information gets to me, not in the way that I was expecting it. For example, I know if I turn on the TV, I'll get this type of information. But maybe what if the information comes to me in a manner that I was not looking for it or expecting it? How do I protect myself from reacting, or how do I protect myself from this trigger causing more harm to me? And then also having people contact emergencies or people who know you well, who in case of anything, or tell them, when I'm behaving in a certain type of way, I'm not okay. If you see I've not slept for 2 days, I'm not okay. If you see I'm not eating, then there's something wrong. If I'm talking too much or self-isolating, please let me know. So also having people who can be sort of responsible. I mean, you should be responsible for yourself, but at times we all need each other. I mean, so having that space where you can have people who can also notice when you're not okay, or when things are not going too well, is also comes very much in handy.
So when do you say, let me cut it off? Because most people, when they're going through a stressful season, they binge watch. It doesn't matter what it is. They just somehow get into that world and get lost in it. How do you know when to cut off?
When things, or rather when, whether it's a show, whatever it is, it starts interfering with your normal day-to-day functioning, then there's a problem. Whether it's gaming, whether it's series watching, whether it's drugs or use of alcohol, when it starts interfering with your normal daily functioning, then there's definitely something that needs to give in. Because you can't stay up till 3 a.m. binge watching a show on Netflix, and you have to be up at 5 to go to work. So either something will have to give in. So either you cut down on the time that you're watching, or you cut down on the time you go to work. Something will have to give in there. So when it's interfering with the amount of time you're spending with one-on-one contact with people, when it interferes with you going to work, or you performing general duties, there are people who even getting out to take a shower, even open the curtains, becomes such a big problem, because no, let me watch the next episode. I'll open the curtains after the next episode. I'll eat after the next episode. Next episode turns to 4 episodes, turns to
The whole
16
series.
episodes, the whole series. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm curious. What happens in season 2? Then you start again. So when it's interfering with your normal day-to-day function such that you're not even able to do your simple basic tasks, then that's time to cut off, or time to seek help, or just time to take a break, just pause and stop and reevaluate.
Okay, so back to Macrine. For the kids, as we said, could be the tricky part because you literally have to be very, very attentive to change of behavior, to what it is that they are exposed to. But also perhaps to just reiterate, how can caregivers and parents work with their children to not only safeguard them from such exposures or to harmful exposures, but to also give them or empower them with the information that there is stuff out there that's not good for you?
Yes, I think the key thing is to build a relationship with their children. When that relationship exists, then there is the channel that is open for communication both ways. So the child is able to express what they think, what they need, what they believe, and the parent is able to respond to them as is appropriate. That being said, the parents need to be very deliberate in exposing their children to the content that is considered to be healthy for them. So take time in identifying what is age appropriate, and there are there are organizations that give guidance to that, like Dr. Ezekiel Mutua's role plays that part. It helps to guide what is age appropriate, what isn't, That is on the one side. On the other part is for the parents to also have a plan on how will we use media as a family, who gets to access what at what point in time. Because the children will likely be of different ages, then it's important to also, calibrate what accesses each of them has. The older ones tend to get more access than the younger ones. And even so, what is that access? How do you come in as a parent to reinforce that which they are gaining through the different channels that you have exposed them to? And what other activities outside of media are you exposing them to that help their learning, their growth, and their development? And also, in terms of ensuring their wellness overall, being clear on what is their usual self, and then checking if there's anything off of their usual self that you're observing, and then coming in on a timely basis to help them to resolve it, even getting external help where necessary.
All right, thank you. Yes.
One thing we can't run away as parents is just take some time. It won't harm you in any way to take time and play that video game with that child, or watch that series or that animation, even if it's just for 20 minutes or 10 minutes, just to see what kind of content it is that they're consuming. We have animation out there that is very adult-like. You see, as a parent, you come in and you see, it's cartoon. What's the worst that could be? And probably it's very adult cartoon that's probably promoting drugs, sex, pornography, and all that. So sitting down, just even 10 minutes, just to see what kind of things is this child consuming. If it's a video game, it should not harm you to just sit down, and even gets the child very excited because they're like, oh, mom or dad is interested in what I am engaging in. And it also makes them feel like you're interested in being part of what they do and what they watch. So I think it also goes a long way. It may not take you too much time, but it's probably go a long way.
Okay, clearly we have underscored the importance of every single part or member of society pulling their weight to ensure that we actually consume the right media, and also are aware on some of the media or content that we consume that actually affects us. Well, this conversation was made possible again by Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, CEO, Kenya Film Classification Board, who left earlier but was very instrumental in the same. Of course, Dr. Linda Nyamute, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and Macrine Abuka, who is a child psychologist. Thank you so much for your time, and also you for being part of this conversation. And I'm told we still have some feedback from you, even as we found out from you. If the consumption of whatever form of media has an influence on news. Cindy says, it's only a fool who can take them as reality. Well, you never know, my dear, from what we've had today. Kennedy Sitati says, blame it on our own media. They consume more of foreign culture as compared to our own, so children learn to accustom themselves in what they see on the mainstream media. Kennedy, we hear you and thank you for being part of this conversation. Now, tomorrow, we put into practice the various conversations we have had about health and nutrition. A lot of you have written to us and said, okay, fine, you talk about eating healthy, but this is such a bland affair or just flavorless affair. So how exactly do I put all these ingredients together and for it to actually give me that incentive to eat healthy? Well, we'll engage a chef and a clinical nutritionist to help us with the same. See you then.
Presenting the new Harpic Bathroom Cleaner. Compared to ordinary detergents,